there are moments in life that are just more impactful than others, in my experience. Maybe they're more impactful or more important or more significant because we ourselves make them so. One such moment for me was in 2010. I was sitting in the library of the high school I was attending while on student exchange in a small town near Toronto in Canada. And I was listening to the speech of a woman called Elisabeth Dallaire. Elisabeth Dallaire is the wife of General Romeo Dallaire, who was heading the Blue Helmets during the Rwanda genocide. I don't even know how I ended up in this library. I don't know if I was picking up a book and I saw it by accident, or if any part of me consciously thought, I want to hear this talk. But I remember how much hearing about this meant to me. In roughly the same part of the time, I also found out about deforestation in the Amazon for the first time. I, for the first time, heard about famines that were happening in different parts of the earth. And for the first time, I saw videos of the animal cruelty that we execute as humanity. My feelings were shock, confusion, deep sadness, and also anger. Anger at how can we even live like this? How is it possible that I'm 15 and I have never heard of these things in this way? You could say it was a kind of awakening to the state the world was in. Soon enough, I started translating this anger and this energy into action. I became an activist. I took to the streets for different initiatives. I volunteered for many NGOs. I, together with friends from my high school, decided to initiate small things and conversations of how can we contribute. Since then, my life has basically been about finding how can I make my best contribution to the world that we're in. I developed, over time, I didn't stay in this anger forever, a life philosophy of what I would call daily leadership. So kind of what this quote for me expresses, that actually very small actions, just how we are in a moment with someone, matter and have an impact. That actually being a good father and raising conscious children, or being an excellent boss at your work and inspiring other people, all of these matter, and not everyone needs to give up their life, in a sense, and go somewhere to become a humanitarian worker, or just go where the situation seems to be the most dire. With time, this led to the conception with others of an initiative called Collaboratio. The very beginning of this initiative was simply the sense that how come that there are so many people and organizations that are already doing great work to see change in this world, to see change in Switzerland, and yet somehow it seems like we're not reaching collectively the state where we want to be in. We are still collectively producing results that actually nobody fundamentally really wants. And when we look at the Agenda 2030, which some of you may know, there are very ambitious goals in there. It's not a perfect agenda, but if you look at how Switzerland is doing, for example, you will notice that only 3 out of all the 17 are in the green zone. If you look at gender equality, or if you look at how much our consumption is impacting the environment, we are actually really not amongst the best in the world. We tend to think that Switzerland is doing so well, and that we have, all of these great institutions, and one of the best democracies in the world, and one of the best education systems in the world. But if we look a little closer, we also have serious issues to address. Let's wait. And what we found is that what we need to do together is to actually look at what is the root cause. Why are we in this situation in the first place? We are doing a lot of what I would call band-aid politics. We find an issue and we try to fix it. We see, okay, not enough people are recycling their plastic bottles, and we make up a new program, a new idea, a new initiative to improve recycling. But we're not thinking, why is the plastic there in the first place, for example? So we thought, we need to go deep. We need to go to the root. And it makes sense, right? It makes sense that if you want to change a system, you actually need to somehow let the conditioning of that system go. So for example, if you're trying to change the education system, you all would agree that if we sat together in a room for one afternoon and would brainstorm what a new education system would look like, if we would still think that it's a building, that it includes a teacher that is teaching the students something, that it's by age group, then we would probably not find the most innovative concept for a future education possible. So we need to work this out of our system, in a sense, to get to a real innovation. There's a quote by Albert Einstein that represents this nicely, right? So we need to shift our mindset in order to be able to solve the issue. So when I co-founded this initiative, now 2.5 years ago, I knew I was embarking on some kind of roller coaster, right? I knew it would be intense, it would be difficult, there would be challenges, just like the startup life, you could say, or trying to change anything or to do meaningful work in general just is. I did not know to what extent this would be an intense roller coaster. I did not know how it would shake up all parts of me and put them together in a different way. And I'm sharing this because we don't talk about this dimension enough. We tend to focus on what are the results and what are all the great successes and the things that worked so well. But we don't actually talk about the inner condition. Where are we coming from with this and how are we experiencing it? And I did very much underestimate what this meant for me as a person. So what made sense on a system level, that we need to let go our conditioning around education to invent a new system, I did not, to the same extent, apply it to my own person and to my own being. And it is only with time that I realized that this quote that we just saw rings true to me. If we want to bring peace to the world, we need to bring peace to ourselves. Where we are coming from when we act and when we take a decision, when we make an intervention, when we launch a project, it matters. Because I could say to you, it's fine, don't worry. And I could really mean it. I could really come from a place of loving acceptance and I have forgiven whatever it is that happened. Or I could say, it's okay, don't worry. And actually come from a place of anger, of resentment. And the same words that I have spoken mean a completely different thing. And most likely you will feel that. So in the same way, if we are trying to change something in the world, and we continuously come at it, for example, from a place of anger, it is not such a surprise that the person opposite us reacts with a defensive stance. So in a sense, for me, I had to really, really look at myself again. I had to accept that I was my own biggest obstacles in many situations. I had to learn again that this is true. The impact really does depend on the internal state of the intervener. And this means that I am not exempt from this. I cannot go out into the world and run great programs and do great projects without doing this inner work myself. Or I could, but I would never have the impact that I would actually like to see. And this is a scary thought. And we are not prepared for this. There are no schools, there is no leadership program, there is no capacity building program that has this on the agenda. It doesn't go public speaking, budgeting, project management, face your own shadow. It just doesn't. So how come? And what for me in this journey has been so insightful, and we're going to see, is to realize that this is work that we all must do. And remember my story from the beginning, how I shared this conscious awakening of sorts and the anger and the sadness and also the terrifying emotions that I felt there. The philosophy that I developed out of it, that everyone just needs to do what they can and everyone can make a contribution. That worked great, that worked really fine. But deep down for me, this meant that if I think everyone needs to do what they can, and I think I can do a lot, then I have to do it all. And actually, in all of the things I've done, in the projects I've run, I'm not saying they didn't matter. I'm not saying they were not important or successful or had a positive impact. But I was oftentimes coming from a place of guilt, coming from a place of sadness, of fear, of anger. And that does make a difference. And to me, it's not a surprise that the burnout rates among social entrepreneurs and people who are trying to change something out there in the world are so high. I think there are many of us who are so committed. And for me personally, every minute that I took that was for me, that was self-care, that was just something that was good for my body, or just doing nothing, I felt like I was taking away from the cause that I was supposed to support. I felt like I was being egoistical with that. But then I had to learn, and the hard way, because I too showed signs of burnout last year, probably many times before, but I wasn't even able to see it, that you cannot pour from an empty cup. It sounds so silly, but you cannot give to others what you don't have. And this is why we really have to start from this place. And it is a bit embarrassing. It is a bit difficult. Because, like I said, no one prepares us for this. We are taught that we have to be so professional and convincing at all times. And this is why I'm also standing here today. I don't have data on this. I didn't make a study. I don't have fancy flowcharts. I just have me, my story, and some quotes that inspired me along this journey. And so in a sense, I think we don't need to take this as, okay, then let's stop doing the work. I am not saying, let's stop getting together, let's stop going to the streets, let's stop being active. I'm also not saying that this is the answer to all of our problems, and I'm preaching a new evangelicum. I'm also not saying that this is the end of it, it's just the beginning. But what I am saying is that everyone can have an impact, and the even smallest actions and smallest decisions make a difference. And where we come from when we do those makes a difference. And that is only the beginning. So when actually people are starting to do this individual work for themselves and are starting to question themselves in that way and becoming clearer and more peaceful if it is on peace that they want to work, this is when we can really collaborate to make a difference. You could think of it as playing an instrument. It's a practice, right? I don't play the violin for a day and then think that I'm done. If I want to be good at playing the violin, I will practice every single day. I will keep going. There will always be new things to learn because there are always new things that I can discover about myself, deeper layers that are yet to uncover. And then if I get really good at playing the violin and you are really good at your instrument, then maybe we can play together. And maybe we can start to improvise together. And we can start to become attuned to what the field needs. So we don't just play what we think needs to be played and the program that I have in my mind, but we play what just emerges from the moment. And this is really my hope. So I want to leave you with this quote that inspires me a lot. And my invitation to all of us is to just do what we can right where we are and meet ourselves and each other with curiosity and compassion. And sometimes, just sometimes, when it's possible, have the courage to talk about where it's difficult, have the courage to face each other in this way, and have the courage to invite ourselves to grow, to support our cause even more. Thank you.